right, everyone, welcome back to ChiroCast, brought to you by ChiroTouch. It's been a little while since our last episode, and we are excited to be back with a conversation that feels especially timely. We're going to talk about youth sports today. They're growing very fast, and unfortunately, so are some of the injuries that come with them. Today, our guest, we are joined by Dr. Tim Maggs. He's a chiropractor, author, and educator who has spent more than 25 years focused on one question: how do we protect young athletes before they get injured? Dr. Maggs is the founder of CPOYA, aka Concerned Parents of Young Athletes. It's a national preventative program that helps identify structural imbalances early and positions chiropractors as leaders in youth sports injury prevention. Dr. Maggs, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Steph. It's a joy to be here. It's probably my favorite topic to talk about, so I look forward to the next hour.
Yeah. So before we talk about program and framework, I want to start with you. And your lead in here was perfect. When did youth sports first become such a meaningful focus for you in your career?
It started probably close to 25 years ago. Approximately 30 years ago, I had the wonderful opportunity of working 4 years with the New York Giants. And that was a tremendous eye-opener to me because here you're dealing with these multi-million-dollar athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But I was shocked when the care of them, they almost waited for them to become injured, and then they'd send them down the hall to the physical therapist or the chiropractor. And
Mm-hmm.
chiropractors are in every locker room. Every pro football team, for example, has a chiropractor, but they're kind of off in the corner, and they adjust players that like to be adjusted. They, if they're not getting better traditionally, they send them to the chiropractor, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. So once I saw that, it started what I have now developed as the structural management program. And that started then. And I say, I didn't know enough then, but I knew there's information that we can find on athletes before they become injured. So that started the whole thing. And then approximately 5 years, 6 years after that, I had a case in my office where a high school kid came in and he had a Division I scholarship waiting for him, but he was in the final semester of high school and he couldn't run because of a back injury. So the clock was ticking.
Yikes.
And it became critically important that we evaluate and understand what it was and get him better. And we did. But I said, this whole market or this whole population is really not looked at all. They are kind of an afterthought. And at that point in time, I said, we need to really start looking into that. So that really was the start of it.
Okay, side question. Are you still a Giants fan?
I am.
Okay.
As painful as that is, I am.
Okay, so audience, so they know, Dr. Maggs, where do you live right now?
I live, for those who aren't in the area, I live near Albany
Yes.
or Saratoga, New York.
Yep. And so I'm down the road or down the thruway in Rochester, New York. And so at some point when you're down the thruway, there's like an invisible line that happens. And we're all Bills fans. So
Right.
very close to Buffalo. Go Bills. Sorry, Giants.
Well, I'm rooting for you now, believe me.
Good times, good times. Okay, cool. Yeah. This is neat because I've always wondered, obviously I was aware of the fact there's chiropractors in every locker room for NFL and probably most professional sports. But I have always wondered, like, what does the application of that look like? And is it used in a preventative fashion? Or, it's great, obviously, chiropractic using people to make them get and feel better if they have a problem. But I wonder how many of those players are being adjusted, if we want to say proactively or using it in that vein. So this is really cool because I don't think that happens very much. I don't know how it might be different now. But that's neat that's kind of how you kind of got your start kind of going down this path. All right, cool. So tell me about your program. I know that's kind of open-ended, but I want to hear about it.
No, it's a good question. It's such a broad topic. Mm-hmm. And when we started, my goal was when I started the structural management program, it was also the beginning of what we call the structural fingerprint exam. And that exam is a biomechanical exam. So if you look at every human being as an architectural structure, and let's say they don't talk to you, let's say they don't give you any information, there are tests that can be done on that structure, much like a building, that can tell you where the asymmetries are, the imbalances are, as a person ages, where the wear and tear is, where the restrictions are. And all of that is vital information on the longevity of that structure. So we then started realizing at the age of 12, we can do this structural fingerprint exam, and we really hope that they've never been injured, although most of them have. But even with a never before injured and not currently injured young athlete, we can do our biomechanical exam and give very unique critical information that is going to affect their lifetime. And now we've really incorporated how do you correct what you found to put
Mhm.
them into safer position for sports. So we've evolved it tremendously over the last 25 years, and now, youth sports has grown bigger than the NFL now,
Mhm.
and they still are governed by health insurance guidelines. So
Sure.
you can see the major gap there.
Yeah. So, in terms of youth sports, like you just said, how much it's grown and how much more popular maybe they've been in more recent years, what do you think has changed the most besides the volume, right?
Mhm.
Um, what do you think has changed or been happening that is contributing to what these kids are experiencing now?
It's a great question. If you see where it's at now, it's larger than the NFL. Um, Private equity firms are now investing billions. And if you go on AI, ChatGPT, it'll confirm it. They're investing billions into youth sports because there's just such a fever now. I say church is no longer what you do on Sunday, it's sports. So it's
Yeah.
taking the place of religion. So, with that being said, the demand on these younger athletes is to start younger. The parents are really the contributors to the fever, because all of us as parents want our child to do better, to play more, to get a scholarship, to
Mhm.
go. So I have a very large middle school, high school practice, and I can tell you at the age of 12 and 13, these kids have two or three coaches. They're in the weight room at that age, and all of it starts with the routine medical exam: eyes, ears, nose, and throat.
Mhm.
So you can see the catastrophe that's occurring. The loading has increased, the volume has increased, the full calendar has increased, and they're starting younger, and no one is looking at any part of their mechanical structure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it seems like, yes, you want to. They all have to get physicals right and be cleared to be able to practice. But I feel like a lot of that, the focus of that physical is, let's make sure it's safe for this kid to participate so they don't die, right? So they're checking out their heart, hopefully, and some other things too. But yeah, I mean, and this is not to knock traditional medicine because they have their place and their focus, but that's what their focus is. It's not biomechanical. And it seems that they're kind of missing the boat. So it seems like a good opportunity for chiropractors to step in.
Well, I've gone out on the edge, and I even on my website, the wrong doctors are in charge, the wrong testing is being done,
Yeah.
and what happens is they don't know that they're the wrong doctors. They're doing what they know, but the medical model is the cause of musculoskeletal problems because it's a reactive model,
Hmm.
and then they treat the symptoms. So the chiropractic profession, unfortunately, Dr. Steph, I'm critical of us because I say we have morphed into that model where we're treating pain, we
Hmm.
market pain, and yet we're the only ones who really understand biomechanics, and we're the only ones that has the scope of practice that will allow us to take biomechanical x-rays, allow us to get MRIs, to identify the degrees of the injuries, allow us to do chiropractic and physical therapy. We're one-stop shopping, but we as a profession, we need to rally together and understand it. And I think I've developed the turnkey system that would be optimal and ideal for the profession to
Mhm.
embrace.
Would you propose that chiropractors be the ones that, if they're trained in this type of specialization, but do you think that we should be the ones clearing kids to participate, or should it be like a team effort? Like, how do you envision that if it was like a pie in the sky situation?
Yeah, and again, I love your questions. I think you're really hitting the nail on the head. We should be the lead authority on musculoskeletal. When it goes
Mhm.
into the concussion world, that's neurology, and although we might have an opinion, I think the neurologist has to be in charge.
Mhm.
Or if it's outside our scope, it's a fracture or a Liz Frank injury, that type of thing.
Mhm.
But for musculoskeletal, I can tell you because I've examined now well over 3,000 kids in the last 20 years. And that's x rays of every one of those kids.
Mhm.
Every one of them has imbalances and asymmetries. And then the truth is, the medical community does not understand musculoskeletal.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They'll go to the docs, and the docs will recommend a medication or go to physical therapy for a brief stint of physical therapy, but no one is looking at the biomechanical faults or what we call a structural fingerprint. And
Sure.
then I'll tell you another piece that really adds to this whole thing. As these kids are growing, their legs do not grow evenly. So
Mhm.
every year or 2 years, it's important to look at femoral head height and to adapt accordingly to try to get them level with the appropriate orthotic and lift because they're not level. And very often they keep growing more unlevel. And I call femoral head height the most important measurement in the body
Mhm.
because it tells you what the lower extremity weight distribution is, the imbalance, and it's a foundation of the spine. The spine is on an imbalanced foundation.
Mhm.
So it's a critical measurement, and I've now got 8 research papers published on this topic, and it's staggering the data that is available and the information that's out there. And my whole mission is for us as a profession to embrace it and let's
Mhm.
leapfrog everyone and start giving the care to this age group that will change their future.
Got it. How do you propose that we measure that? Would it be just an A to P pelvis and you're looking at the difference between the femoral head height, or are you getting like measuring like actual leg length with the
Well,
x-ray?
with the digital X-rays now, A to P pelvis, you just easily in 3 seconds you can measure femoral head height.
Okay.
And 3 millimeters and below is classified as optimal.
Mhm.
Above 3 millimeters is not optimal. But
Okay.
we also have done extensive studies of doing it barefoot versus orthotics in the shoes. And so there's so much data now that we've proven
Mhm.
how to do it. It's insane that we continue to be part of that medical model and only treat these kids when they hurt.
Got it. Yeah, that's nuts. So it sounds like you're pointing. I feel like a lot of people with injuries, especially with kids, they want to just blame it on overuse. So I feel like that may or may not be a component, but is that a term that you use? You talk to kids and parents about that? Like, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. Overuse is what's used a lot today, but I
Hmm.
use I use it a lot in combination with biomechanical faults. And when you
Right.
get both involved, there's an exponentialism of abnormal loading. And then when you have sports specialization, a pitcher, a tennis player, where you're using the same joints repeatedly, that overuse combined with the
Mhm.
biomechanical faults. That's why I say today musculoskeletal is the leading cost in healthcare. 20 years from now and beyond, it's going to explode as far as joint replacements, the whole opioid crisis, loss of quality of life, pain management departments. That's what's coming because we're not looking at how to solve the problem.
Yeah. So a quick story here. so I see patients still and I have a home practice, but everyone comes through my front porch with my outside little door, right? Not like a regular door, it's like a porch door. And I've noticed, so I have higher volume. So there's more people coming through than maybe would be at a normal person's house, right? And
Mhm.
then also none of them are doing it right. So they go to yank on the handle without like turning the latch to actually like open the door.
You need
And
an
so like
instruction video.
yeah, I've got overuse issue because it's getting used more. I've got a biomechanical issue because they're all doing it wrong. And the handle, it's like a disaster. So I have to tighten the stupid thing on it all the time. And patients are always like, they'll turn back and they're holding the handle in their hand because it
Right.
came off. Like it's a disaster. And so I still don't know what the answer is. I think my next step, I'm going to put up a little sign, but I'm super anti-sign because I feel like no one reads them. Once they've seen the sign a few times, they get used to it and it just does not register anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. Like they don't know how to use the handle, so it's causing a problem. And unfortunately, I think that really resonated. I've never considered it. In those terms that, kids are growing and their legs are not growing at the same rate, like that makes complete sense. Why would they be? Yeah, so we really need to pay close attention to that population so
Well,
that they don't
I'll give you
get
an
those
example.
problems.
We
Mhm,
had a patient come in when she was a junior in high school about 3 years ago. And so we put orthotics in her shoes. We use orthotics for everyone because one of our studies
mhm,
showed that 100% of the population have varying degrees of collapse of the feet. And because I'm so architecture oriented, it's like,
mhm,
okay, let's fix the foundation. So I go through the process of making patients understand the importance of orthotics, number one.
mhm,
So at that time, we x-rayed her with orthotics on, and her femoral head height was 1.5 millimeters different, which makes it normal.
mhm,
She stops coming in 3 years later. She's a freshman in college. She's on the Division I track program. She's got a chronic hamstring that she cannot heal on her own, and she's been out for 6 weeks. We
mhm,
bring her back in. We put new orthotics in her shoes. We re-x-ray her femoral head height. It goes from 1.5 to 12.1.
mhm.
Therein lies why that one hamstring won't heal. Okay. And that story is behind every kid out there. So if you spent a week in my office, you'd go back to your office and you'd say, we've got to change what we're doing. We're missing all of this.
Yeah, I'm already thinking that.
I know. I
I
know.
need to take a ride down the thruway and come hang out with you
Well,
for
we
a
would love
day.
to have you because I love it when docs visit. But here's the thing, I spent 7 years in a school. I had an office in a school, and you may be familiar with Christian Brothers Academy.
I don't think
They're
I've heard of them, but
they're
that's
in
okay.
Syracuse and they're in
Mhm,
Albany. So it's the largest private school in upstate New York. And I had an office in the school for 7 years. And my whole mission was to make that the model. And therefore, I would do every opportunity I could to educate parents that
mhm,
all of your kids have biomechanical faults. We will evaluate them at no cost. And I'm here once a week to be able to treat them as just standard. I mean,
mhm,
you have to bring them in once a week. It's not necessarily for the injury, but and it went incredibly well. But then COVID really
mhm,
zapped us. And by the time I got back in the school, it was all new parents, and I couldn't afford the time to stay there. But every school should have a chiropractor in the school
mhm,
teaching biomechanics, encouraging these exams. My goal is for every kid in the country to get this exam before the season starts. And
mhm.
until we do that, these kids are flying without a net and nobody has a clue what injuries are coming.
Got it. Yeah, so why do you think the system tends to wait for a problem instead of prioritizing prevention?
Well, because it's the same as in pro locker rooms. The athletic trainer and the orthopedist are in charge. That's their model. That's
Mhm,
what they do. That's what they know. And the whole system is set up that way, because set up for that because insurance is set up for that.
Okay.
So everything is set up for that. Nobody knows that there is an alternative approach. And that's why I feel like I'm out on the corner screaming. I've written hundreds of articles. I've given hundreds and hundreds of seminars, and you feel like you're not making any progress, but I'm sure there's an impact from it. But if we as a profession could embrace this, I just think that we as a profession could change the course
Mhm.
of history.
Sure.
It's that impactful.
Yeah, so you've mentioned the age 12 to 13 a few times now. So, two questions. How early do you think these imbalances start? And is there a optimal age or an age where maybe someone would be too young to be evaluated?
Great question again. We're asymmetrical when we're born.
Mhm.
And I say from the moment that child stands, abnormal loading is starting to accumulate. And again, the many years I've been in practice, I've learned little quips of how I make people understand what I'm trying to say without going into detail. I say, and then you have had a pathway of banana peels your entire life, and here you are today.
Mhm.
So the age of 7 is when we start with orthotics, and we take one x-ray, femoral head height. The age of 12 is when we do our full structural fingerprint exam, because the child is developed at that point. We've got a 16-point exam with 4 standing biomechanical x-rays.
Okay, got it. Do you shoot films in your office?
I do.
Okay, I don't see how this could work. I mean, you could do it if you had. I have
You can
sent
do
people
it,
out,
but you
but
see, we've got this concept in our profession that don't X-ray, and I say that's tantamount to the medics not doing blood tests.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I gave a talk to the graduates of Northeast Chiropractic College. I don't know, 3-4 months ago,
Mhm.
and I talked about the importance of x-rays, and I showed them femoral head height and the whole thing. And one of them came up to me and said, would you talk to our radiology department, because
Yeah,
they
right.
tell us not to take x-rays.
Good
So
luck.
we have an identity crisis in our profession. But I
Mhm.
can tell you this, we've got a marking system for our x-rays that applies to every x-ray series you take. And
Mhm.
it's as simple as this, Dr. Steph. We know what a normal lordotic curve is in the neck. If
Mhm.
it's not that, there's abnormal loading.
Yeah.
So we have that for the 4 x-rays that we take. Every patient has abnormal biomechanical loading that is either not symptomatic yet or is going to be symptomatic.
Got it. Yeah, I went to well, it was NYCC at the time, so that's where I went to
Right.
school, and I'll never forget, I had a patient once that was coming into clinic, and they had called ahead of time, and they needed an X-ray, and I was so excited because I was like, "Oh my god, I get to take an X-ray of someone. This is amazing." But I think it was something weird, gonna be like their foot or something. It wasn't like a
It
spine
wasn't even
situation.
spinal.
No.
Well, here's what happened to me. I went to National College, and we had intense radiology. So the day I graduated, I got an X-ray system, started X-raying the day I graduated. I've been in practice 47 years now, so I
Mhm.
had this massive database. But in addition to that, I had the luxury, the opportunity to lecture for 9 years with Terry Yoakum.
Mhm.
And I lectured 55 times with him, and I heard the same lecture 55 times, but I learned something different at every one.
Mhm.
And I'm here to say that imaging, X-ray and MRI, is the key to the future. And no one
Yeah,
has embraced it. And if we can embrace that, we will change the concept of how to evaluate people. And
absolutely.
we will become the authorities in evaluating and caring for people.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll say his name correctly, but I've been reading Peter Attia. He has a book out, and he talks about that. He's a medical doctor, and we have all these regulations like wait to get you wait to get this imaging until you're this age, and you're gonna wait for a DEXA until you're 60 or whatever it's
Sure,
supposed to
sure.
be. And he's like, it's way too late. Like we're just finding things way after the fact, and it's way harder to help people after things have taken hold. So this is not a foreign concept. And yeah, it is frustrating, I think, as a practitioner, when we do know the truth here, where if you can get ahead of something, you're going to help prevent a problem. I think people in our profession who are against x-raying, I think they would say, well, if it's indicated clinically, well, there comes a point at which we have to use our evidence that we see in front of our eyeballs and in our everyday practice, and what we know about the human body and how it works. I think some of those people they're just picking a hill to die on, and I don't know that they have the background to. Is there really the evidence to say that it's harmful to do these things for people in the face of the information that you garner from them to be able to help prevent a problem? So it's hard.
Well,
It's hard to
yeah,
measure something that you prevented, and maybe that's where the issue lies. But when
yeah.
we see it happening all the time, and if we can see that it stops when you do these certain things, yeah.
Well, you have, I go back to if you remove lab testing from medics, where does healthcare end up?
Yeah.
And yet we know that medical evaluate or medical approach to musculoskeletal is, I mean, it's foolish to think that there's any type of logic to that. So no one has ever really created the musculoskeletal approach, and I think that's what I've done is created a system that's backed by massive data, that's backed by 8 peer-reviewed medical journal research papers. We've
Mhm.
done all the studies, and now we have all of the system, the testing, the interpretation, the communication to the patient so they understand it. We as chiropractors have just the most wonderful um, toolkit to be able to address what we found on those tests.
Mhm.
And that is what will protect and prevent. Now, do I have proof? Well, I do. On my 6th paper, and I tell this story, and this is what my upcoming book will tell about too. I bought a professional basketball team for the sole purpose of governing the locker room because I know that I can't have that clout in another locker room. So the team is the Albany Patroons, which are the most storied minor league professional organization ever because Phil Jackson, who is the winningest coach in NBA history for championships. He won his first championship with the Albany Patroons. So in 2020, at the press conference, I said, the reason I'm taking ownership isn't for business purposes. It's so that I can govern what the protocols are in the sports med department. So the players came into camp, we examined them, x-rayed them, orthotics, lifts if needed, treated them twice a week. And at 9 games in, COVID hit.
Mm.
So we had 9 games with no injury. Now we couldn't get back to playing again under this system till 2023. So we were able to show in 2023 11 players, 32 games, 1 player missed 2 games.
Mhm.
And the 6th paper published explains all of the details of how we got to that point. And those are unprecedented numbers in pro sports.
Cool. If someone wanted to read some of your research, how might they be able to find
If
it?
they go to drtimmags.com,
Mhm.
up in the right-hand corner, and I'm not a web guy, so I have to explain it the way I would. There are 2 little horizontal lines. If you click on that, scroll down will occur published
Mhm.
studies.
Okay,
All eight,
great.
all 8 of them are right there.
Nice. I love
Yeah,
it. So question, the exam that you do, the structural fingerprint exam, um, with the imaging, and we've kind of obviously talked about the imaging here, but you're doing the imaging standing, right?
correct.
I mean, even if any film I've ever taken, even the cervical films, I always write standing on the order because I mean, I want to see what we're spending most of our time upright, and when we're being functional, trying to do stuff, we're upright. So I want to see things through that lens. But is there any other reason why you would prefer standing versus laying down that often medical community would default to, or it's just obvious and I
Well,
already
first
mentioned
of
it?
all, why do they do it recumbent? They do it recumbent because better control of the patient. They aren't concerned with what gravity shows. and they aren't looking for biomechanics, so it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
I tell patients, you're a victim of gravity and aging and stress. And number two, as human beings, as architectural structures, over time, we're victims of compression. And where does the body compress? Where do we lose height? We lose it in the joints, the discs. So, therefore, which takes us maybe down a little different tangent, and it's not necessarily the kids, but we have 5 spinal decompression systems in our office
Mhm.
because compression in the spine is an epidemic in our country. The medics call it, you've got arthritis here, take some ibuprofen or whatever.
Mhm.
However, that those joints that are wearing, they fit right into the chiropractic lexicon because they've lost mobility, the loading is abnormal, and we want to get life back into those joints, which decompression does. So we want to see what you look like standing because we use biomechanical measurements as an architectural structure. Are you symmetrical? Are you level? Are your centers of gravity good? And where is the wear and tear? And
Mhm.
those issues apply to every patient that we x-ray.
So, how would you say your clinical decision making is impacted by the imaging? So, for example, do you ever have patients where they don't have that difference between the femoral heads? It's less than 3 millimeters, so you wouldn't recommend orthotics, or is everyone getting orthotics because is there like a foot exam involved here too, and you're doing something different to support the foot itself, not necessarily correct for that femoral head difference? Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And that's, again, I love your question. So here's the situation. I lectured for 20 years for foot levelers. I claim, and in my seminars, I claim I've sold more orthotics than anyone in history. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody refute it. So until they do, I'm going to say I've sold more than anybody. And then what I did, my 5th paper that is on my website, we examined 1,001 patients' feet. And we concluded that those 1,001 patients, every one of them had varying degrees of collapse
Mhm.
of parts of their feet. Secondly, we learned that as we age, feet continue to collapse. So, therefore, knowing that musculoskeletal is the leading cost, I don't even examine the feet anymore. We start with orthotics and then we look at femoral head height because the feet in the collapse of the feet and leg length govern femoral head height. If we fix the feet, the
Mhm.
only variable is femoral head height. So that will tell us on that x ray. Now, yes, we get people that are under 3 millimeters, but they have orthotics. And now we set up our treatment program. Now that we know they're balanced, now we set up our treatment program.
Got it. How do you feel about heel lifts? Because I feel like a lot of docs are just going to see an imbalance with femoral heads, one leg longer than the other, whatever, and they just want to go right to a heel lift, whether that's in conjunction with or separate from an orthotic.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
comment.
we use heel lifts probably 70% of our patients
Okay.
with orthotics. However, I will have that rare patient that doesn't want orthotics or they wear a shoe that doesn't tolerate an orthotic. I'll recommend a heel lift, but that's very, very rare, but I can see the logic in it.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, next question. Sorry, we're on orthotics now. Especially with kids, their feet are growing. So whether it's kids or adults, you can answer both. But how frequently might you recommend, let's start with kids, how frequently do they need to get new orthotics? Because I could see, I mean, they grow out of their clothes like, they're growing like weeds sometimes. So how frequently do they
How
need
frequently?
new orthotics, or what might you recommend in terms of how frequently they need to be replaced?
Right. And again, I don't know this for sure, Dr. Steph, but I think I've seen more kids over the years than anyone, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I've recommended more orthotics than anyone. So I always say they will wear them out before they outgrow them.
Okay.
So when they're active in sports, I recommend between 1 and 2 years. Every kid is different as far as how rough they are on their shoes. But
Hmm.
we recommend a full orthotic and a cleat orthotic because many sports have cleats. So that's a
Yep.
3/4 orthotic. So therefore, they're not wearing the same orthotic full time. But generally, 1 to 2 years is how often you should. And I frame it as an investment in your child
Hmm.
to minimize. And let me take it back a step because we're missing one key element here. I have a graphic that I now use that I developed. It looks like a skeleton almost, but it's an asymmetrical skeleton. And
Hmm.
we named it Actuary Alex. Alex, male, female, actuary. That structure has a cost attached to it before it dies. And
Hmm.
that cost, it's going to start out with injuries. It's going to move into joint problems. It's going to then move into joint replacement. It's going to move into disabilities. It's going to move into loss of quality of life until the person dies.
Yeah.
And it's hell getting old. So we want to use that name to educate parents. Your child has a cost attached to it, and that cost is going to be more than your generation is paying. So
Mhm.
therefore, as an investment on the front end, every 1 to 2 years we want to have new orthotics put in the shoes.
Got it. So I'm going to throw you a curveball here because it hasn't been mentioned yet. But do you ever care for kids or teenagers, whatever? What about dancers? Because that is a sport and I think it can be pretty rigorous. But I mean, do you have any comments here? But also especially like if it's ballet, they can't wear an orthotic in that shoe, right? So what do we do
Right.
about that?
Well, it's the same as swimmers. It's the same as wrestlers. So
Hmm.
there are sports that would never tolerate an orthotic, but that's only so you can't wear it, but you can wear it the rest of your life, and you
Yep.
wear it when cause the other 8-10 hours that you're up and about.
Okay,
So
perfect.
it's an automatic that you get it, and I know there are
Hmm.
going to be times you don't wear it, but it's a ratio. You want to have it in when you're in that situation of walking, standing as much as possible.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think you might have touched on this, like drawing a distinction with parents to get them to understand the difference between treating symptoms versus caring for structure. It's not just the financial investment. There also might be like a time investment. They have to come in to
Mhm.
see you and all the things. So, how do you overcome or explain that to patients in general or parents?
Well, first of all, parents will do anything for their kids. I think you
Wait,
noticed that.
but will
Go
they
ahead.
do anything for their kids or are they more likely to do anything for their pets? I feel like people will spend anything on their pets.
They will. You see, in New York, you can't adjust pets.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean for chiropractic, but I mean,
No,
I
I
don't have
know.
kids, so I'm not trying to say I would put my pet before my kid, but
No,
it
but
seems
that's
more
very true.
excessive with
But
pets.
but but kids are in the same category. So
Yeah.
parents will take bullets for their kids more than they will for themselves. All
Yeah.
right. Now, with that being said, I will make a statement here that I believe to be true. The overwhelming programming that the current system has on the public, which is what does my insurance cover?
Mhm.
If I don't hurt, I don't have time.
Yeah.
That dominates what my educational logic tries to do. So
Mhm.
I have said to parents endlessly, and that's why I ultimately went into the school. I got approval to go into the school to make it easier for parents. But I say once a week until they graduate. That's when they're not injured, once a week until they graduate. And I have families that stick to it.
Mhm.
Most families can't and don't because you don't have kids. I'll tell you this, there's no schedule busier than a family that has kids in middle school, high school.
I don't
It's
know how they do
insane.
it. I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
how they do it.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I constantly give that message once a week until they graduate. And some do, most don't, but they call back when the kid's injured. Now you get
Yeah.
them back into it again. But I say, I'm out here alone singing this song. If we as a profession could come out with the new standards
Mhm.
of youth sports, people would listen. You know what I mean? Because there's so many people now have an interest in youth sports from an economic point of view.
Yeah.
There's so much money to be made.
That's interesting. How is there money to be made? I don't know if you can explain that.
Yeah, well, think of equipment.
Okay.
Think of costs to be part of a league. Think of tournaments, AAU. Parents are spending more money than they've ever spent in their life, and everybody wants a piece of that.
Yep.
So, and that again is only growing. And that's why I say what has lagged behind is the sports medicine department.
Yeah.
And kind of one of the missions that I've been on, Dr. Bennett Amalu, back in, I don't even remember the year, he was a Nigerian pathologist in Pittsburgh, and he wanted to prove that repeated hits to the head would cause injury and damage and personality changes. And so ultimately he went up against the NFL. They didn't want that information out there. He
I
beat
feel
the
like I've heard
NFL.
this story.
Yeah, it's in the movie Concussion. He beat
Okay.
the NFL,
Mhm.
and now concussion protocols are part of every organization in the country. But if you think about it, Dr. Steph, that's from here up. There
Mhm.
are no protocols from here down, and that's what I want my protocols to become, those protocols, because we've got the proof. I have far more evidence than Dr. Amalu had, and we've got
Mhm.
everything in place. We just need to get chiropractors aligned with it and have a system where they can become part of it, trained, certified. They're on the website, and I think it would explode.
So here's a crazy question too.
Go ahead.
So I think part of what we would need to get something like that going would be the support and resources of one of our colleges, or like having it be part of our education. And so that being said, though, what do you think of? Because you just mentioned Pittsburgh, the new chiropractic program that they are rolling out. Not that we know anything about it, but the idea of a major, large university having a chiropractic program that wasn't a chiropractic specific school. Do you have any
Right.
thoughts on that?
Well, you say chiropractic, it's almost, I've thought about it like a new profession, because I don't want to try and steer chiropractic and BJ Palmer and the philosophies of all of those, forefathers to come into my system. But I say we have to progress with the times and the needs
Mhm.
of the public. So I do think that some school would do well to create a physical medicine profession
Mhm.
that uses imaging, that uses, pre-injury approach, and
Mhm.
then uses all of the tools to treat and rehab even before injuries. Now, one of the things I'm doing, and I'm marketing it to pro sports, and I know one of these days, with all I have, somebody's going to agree to it, is the development of an injury prevention department. And
Yeah.
I say a pro team that has, let's say, a pitcher that's making $50 million a year. To develop a prevention department would cost $1 to $2 million a year. And think of the advantage: no stress. The players are evaluated. They come in for treatment all season. The fixed cost, they would now not be in the injury department as much. So the injury department would go way down. The economics
Mhm.
of the team and the state would go up because teams now can be more competitive because they're not losing key players. So
Yeah.
that that's going to happen. I'm being very slow in approaching it because, having worked with the Giants, I understand how to get it to that level. I just am kind of building this ship, hoping that I can get people come on board with me, because there's a lot of young, excited chiropractors, and sports is the biggest thing out there.
Yeah.
Being a Bills fan,
Right, right. Also, we have a lot of hockey around here. I feel like it's got to be the same by you for like youth sports.
it is.
And I'm just imagining, like, can you put an orthotic in a hockey skate? I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's where a cleat orthotic or a hockey orthotic or a skate
Interesting.
orthotic, it's the same three-quarter orthotic.
Ah, okay, cool. Do you actually have kids that do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a lot of them. That's what we do. I mean, we
Cool.
treat so many kids, and I don't even care what sport they play.
Mhm.
My conclusion now, after all these years, is we'll put you into your sport safer and with better chance of not getting hurt than if you didn't come in.
Got it. I like it.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a recommendation on best orthotics to purchase, where to get them, because there's so many different ones out there. Do you have a recommendation on that?
I do, but I'm not going to tell you. So
That's okay.
no, but I'll tell you why. There's reasons why I'm not going to tell you, but here's what I will say. I will say this now. My research has proven that you don't need custom orthotics.
Okay.
So they should be more available to people. There's many over-the-counter orthotics out there
Mm-hmm.
because they're less expensive. Now you say, well, how did you conclude that? And I'm going to give you the analogy. The most important measurement in the body is femoral head height. No custom orthotic company out there has ever talked about looking at femoral head height. They
Mm-hmm.
try to fix everything in the foot. The foot is the victim of an imbalance in weight distribution. So therefore, we want symmetry in both feet, but
Mm-hmm.
we then want the x-ray to determine if there's a femoral head height difference, leg length difference.
Got
So
it.
I use the analogy, if you have a front end misalignment of a car, you don't buy custom tires.
Mm-hmm.
You fix the misalignment and buy tires.
Got it. I
Okay.
wouldn't have known not to do that.
Well, no, but I say that no one has ever come out and said that, but no one's ever done the research or seen as many people as I've seen over the years. And it's a major statement because you don't need custom orthotics.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like there is a sense out there, at least among the profession, that you really do. So I'll tell you, I don't have a way to do custom orthotics for my patients, but I also wouldn't have thought that a non-custom orthotic could be, I don't want to say good enough, but just as good, if not better.
Well,
So,
there's varying degrees. So there's inexpensive and
mhm,
more expensive, but the goal with the feet is to create symmetry. So
mhm.
there are even shoes and sandals out there that have really good arch support in there. And there are times I'll say to a patient, okay, if you want to keep that, that's fine because you're creating symmetry of the feet. That's the goal.
Yeah. What would you say to the people who are a big fan of like no shoes, no orthotics, all the barefoot stuff out there?
Well, again, I know this. I'm like Tom Hanks in what's that movie that I
I'm not
can't
good
think
at
of it.
movies.
I know he's got so many. I'll think of it in a second. Again, I believe I'm an expert in this. And one of the reasons I'm an expert in this, for 30 years, I have sponsored a team of Kenyan runners. So I
Mhm.
have my own team of East African runners, which is where this concept originated.
Okay.
And in the end, everyone has varying degrees of imbalances in the feet that are transferred up the body to an increased Q angle of the knee, to a greater femoral head height difference. So if you run barefoot, you're ignoring all of the biomechanical imbalances that exist.
Mhm.
And that's, you can't do it. So I have all of my Kenyan runners wear orthotics.
Okay. Got it. That's neat. I don't know how you do some of these things. You've got stuff all over the place. I love it.
Busy. But you know what? Here's what it is. It's a passion. It's a mission I've been on, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait to get to work in the morning.
Mhm.
I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of reading, and it's just I've been blessed in a life that I truly love.
I love
And
it.
you help people. You love it. When you help somebody, it's a joy you can't describe.
Yeah, that's why, I practiced full time for 14 years, but I came to ChiroTouch and I just didn't I wasn't ready to hang up my hands, I guess. And so it was funny. I was like, well, we'll just see whoever comes to see me is fine.
Yeah,
So I don't have a website. I don't have business cards. I don't advertise.
yeah. You're like the old time doc.
Yeah, we actually joke my practice is like a speakeasy. Like you need the secret password to get in or the secret knock on the door. But so and that's the thing. I was just like, well, I'll just take care of whoever comes see
Yeah,
me. And it's
yeah.
been 3 years now, over 3 years, and they're still coming. So, it is nice to keep doing things and still keep a hand in that, even if it isn't like my full-time gig. So,
Right, right.
anyways, back to the kids. So, question. Is there
So
something that,
Forrest Gump is, I've got help from Phone a Friend.
yes, I think
Forrest
that's
Gump.
what I was thinking, but
Yeah.
I couldn't come up with it either. Okay, so what is one thing that you would want every parent of a young athlete to understand?
They have the ability to change their child's life in the most incredible way if they would not follow their pattern of thinking. They're robots. They
Mhm.
follow the pattern of thinking. And then they ask the pediatrician, what do you think? And the pediatricians have no clue. So I would love all parents to recognize the massive importance of preserving the kids' biomechanics, which again, it's an uphill battle, but what will do it is the media. The
Yeah.
media will change that. And that's why I say if we can get numbers, if we can get media writing about it, because it has such an impact on society. I mean, you'll
Mhm.
change healthcare. If you could get this to become larger nationally, you would change the future of healthcare in this country. It's that big.
What about coaches? So I often will get a parent and they'll bring their kid in and, got hurt at practice or game or whatever, and coach said to do X, Y, or Z. And I'm always like, ooh, that's not what you should be doing. But so what could coaches be doing to make things be
Co-
different?
Coaches, see, that's a category unto itself because coaches, the parents look to the coach. So the
Hmm.
coaches are very influential people. But if you look at the history of coaches in sports medicine, most coaches know that the doctors don't know,
Hmm.
and that the doctors will just take the athlete out. So I've always said 2 weeks off is not a treatment recommendation, but that's what docs will do to protect themselves. But coaches know that the docs don't know. So what's happened is the coaches have kind of become the docs because they think they know more than the other docs, and they probably do, but they don't know enough by any means. So
Yeah.
they can be a challenge. So either you have the light switch on where they're open to it, or the
Hmm.
light switch off where they think they know everything. And that's a challenge too. But that's one that, if we could put together a healthier organization within our profession, we'd have a coach's educational program to
Hmm.
educate them. Because if you think about it, Dr. Steph, if I'm the coach of a football team and I have you, Dr. Steph, taking care of my quarterback off hours
Hmm.
that will reduce the risk of him being injured, I would encourage him to go to you
Yeah.
because it's not interfering in my schedule.
Hmm.
So, but they just don't know. And that's the type of education we need to get to these coaches.
Yeah, that would be interesting. If there's chiropractors listening, I know a lot of us, well, that do have kids, our kids are playing sports often. So those would be interesting conversations for our parents who are chiros maybe to have with their coaches, I think, or see what inroads they can make maybe to help there.
Well,
That
and
would be
again, I easily could put together that program because I've dealt with probably hundreds of coaches over the years, and I can tell immediately it's a switch on or off.
yeah. All right, well, you're on it. We've assigned it to you.
Okay, throw it over here. I've got nothing going.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, good. So as we start to wrap up, I just want to zoom out for a moment. So we talked about biomechanics, imaging, parents, prevention, coaches. But at the heart of this is protecting kids and helping them stay healthy. And I think a lot of our focus and parents and the kids and the coaches' focus is often on that kid being able to continue in their sport and be successful, but it also is, like you've said, going to be better for healthcare in the long run and preventing issues as they age. I have a quick story I want to share. So, I had a patient a few years ago now who I do CrossFit when I go, and so she was in our gym doing CrossFit, teenager, very healthy, good movement, very good at it, and long story short, she ended up going sledding on like New Year's Day and hit a big bump. And when they landed after the bump, her back started hurting a lot. And so they came in to see me. long story short, again, she had a spondylolisthesis. I forget at what level. There's no way to know if it was the sledding that literally did it. Was it there before and it was just exacerbated? I don't know, but it was obviously very acute. So I tend to think maybe that sledding situation was the problem. But it was tough because I knew these people and I knew it was like their dream and her dream to the CrossFit Open was coming up. It was in like a month later, right? Or a month and a half after New Year's, whenever that was this year or that particular year. And she obviously wanted to do that because she wanted to see how far she could get. And I had to tell her that she couldn't. And it sucked, but they were crying in the office. It was very upsetting. But I told them, I'm like, it's not about like CrossFit this year or like your sport this year. It's about you doing this next year and the year after that and the year after that. And if you do this year and you ignore these signals that your body is sending you, you might, that could be a problem with you moving forward, even worse than kind of what you've got now. So, thankfully, they did follow my advice. They did continue getting care. They did went to Partners in Medical Community for advice there, which really was just, they might have gone to PT. I don't remember. But anyways, she did take the season off. She was still working out and exercising, but not to any level of intensity, really. And she made essentially a full recovery. She's participated in the Open every year since. She's now in college and still doing CrossFit competitions. She's gearing up for this year. So I think making sure parents have that big picture view of the future and trying to explain that to kids, because they especially struggle, I think, because they're young and they don't have that perspective. I think that's really important. So,
well, it's interesting, and I'll be very brief, but that's the story Terry Yoakum told 55 times, and his whole lecture is on spondylo. So here's what an additional piece of that puzzle, which would have helped you, because you said, I don't know if it was acute, but I don't know if it was, he calls it active or inactive.
yeah,
An MRI would have given you that answer, and it would have shown edema. And if there's edema, that means it just happened and it's a 3 to 4 month time frame to resolve it. If there's no edema, the spondylo is not the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
So that's a piece of the puzzle that he taught me, and now I've used many, many times because it's such a common condition in kids.
I'm wondering if we did I'll have to go back and look now.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
curious.
a stir image would show if there's edema in the pedicles, then it's a new injury, and therefore it's 3 to 4 months. And he recommends a Boston overlap brace, 3 to 4 months. So
I got to go back and look now. It was like 7 years ago, so I might not be forgetting, but I'm going to look it up this afternoon.
Yeah. But that's what it is. So when I have an acute low back come in as a kid, I immediately get an MRI. I want to rule that out.
You bypass an image, like a film, and you go straight
No, I
to
take
that?
X-rays,
Okay.
but a lot of times you'll have no spondylo. There's no pars defect. However, there is edema in the bone, and he calls that a pending spondylo. There's no pars defect, but you have to treat it the same as an active spondylo, 3 to 4 months off.
Got it.
So,
I
and
like
that's
that.
another condition that chiropractors are unaware of, that Terry has done all the work. I've been the beneficiary of learning, but we need to get that information out to other docs as well.
Yeah.
A lot of work ahead of us, Dr.
Yeah. So on that note, if someone wants to learn more about your work or your organization, CPOYA, where should they go?
Well, they can email me, Dr. T at drtimmags.com. They can go to the website. We have a massive amount of information, but we are going to be creating a network of doctors now that we're, really getting this thing off the ground. So if they contact me or ChiroTouch and let them know, and ChiroTouch can let me know, we'll put them on the list and keep them posted as we develop this program.
I love it. So it's drtimmags, 2gs.com, right?
Yeah, well, it's
Your website?
Dr. Tim Mag. Yes, drtimmags.com.
Yes.
It's
And Mags
Dr.
is with two
T
Gs.
at Dr. Tim Mags for email.
Perfect.
And
All
I
right,
want you to
good.
come down and I want you to spend a day with me.
I know. We'll have to ask for permission for me to get away from ChiroTouch for a day.
Oh,
No, I'm just
ChiroTouch.
kidding.
I would like ChiroTouch to pay for you to come down,
Oh, well, yes. We can bring
and
that up the chain.
so you can go back and give them a report of what you think.
Yeah, I can do that. We'll have
Yeah,
to find out. All right, cool.
let's try.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. I love the work that you're doing. And thanks for coming to share this with our listeners. We've been doing this a few years now, and I don't know, we haven't really covered a topic like this, obviously. So I love the
Well,
info.
I'll say this. You did a spectacular job. I never have people ask me the right questions. You asked all the right questions. You were one step ahead of me. So
Yeah.
thank you so
And just
much.
so everyone knows, I have never talked to you before today, actually.
Right, right.
So,
We're new
I mean,
friends.
I do know of you for various reasons. So, but that's really funny. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So if you're a chiropractor or a parent or maybe even a coach that wants to learn more about CPOYA and how this proactive model is being brought to communities across the country, visit Dr. Tim Maggs' website, drtimmaggs.com/CPOYA. That's how you spell CPOYA, to explore its mission and resources. Thanks for listening to this episode of ChiroCast, brought to you by ChiroTouch. We appreciate you being part of this conversation, and we'll see you next time. And big thanks to Dr. Tim Maggs.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of ChiroCast, Insights for Modern Chiropractors, brought to you by ChiroTouch. Hosted by Dr. Stephanie Brown, produced by Debbie Brooks, editing from Matthew Dodge, and title animation by Eric Madden. Our theme song, House 5, is from Scott W. Brooks. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to like, link, and subscribe. We appreciate your support, and we'll catch you next time.